Environment Canterbury, I think this is, yeah, their bus routes. So we harvest these from their open data portal. They're using the Esri ArcGIS open data portal. And so they have a bunch of formats available there. We try to make it as available in as wide a range of formats as possible. So there's a combination of open standard ones there and more specific ones like shapefiles and access through to the Esri REST APIs, etc. These three here are usually most interesting to me. GeoJSON, CSV, and KMLs are quite open format file formats for geospatial data. So if we go in and say look at the GeoJSON one, we can go and actually get a preview of that. So it's sort of try before you buy, so to speak. So without leaving data.govt.nz, you can actually bring up a nice simple map, and we can zoom in and see roughly what's contained within that data set, what sort of layers are in there. So you can see here, this is the basic layers of the bus routes. I can click on it, get a little bit of the data in behind that, but that's about it. And now if I want to, if this is what I'm looking for, now I can kind of commit and go, yep, that's what I want. Click, go to resource, and that will actually download the resource for me, or I can follow the link through and go through to the data portal as well, which is quite good. That's a marked improvement over the old portal where we simply gave you this level, so just the data set level. We didn't give you any of the actual specific file types, and essentially all you were really given was this sort of source link that you could follow through, and if I click that, essentially I'll end up on the Canterbury Maps space, and then I'd have to go searching for the data. So it kind of, the whole point of it is just to help people in that discovery and exploration phase of their data search, and then pointing them in the right direction once they've discovered the data that they actually are needing for their research project or their application or whatever it is that they're building. The other neat thing about the new portal is the harvestability. So in the original portal, we relied on a lot of people creating manual updates to their data sets, which is great. We got a lot of them through. We actioned a lot of those as well. But there's better ways of doing these things. So what we have now is the ability to actually harvest in data using an international standard called data.json format. And so this was created by an initiative in the States called Project Open Data, or Data, depending on how you pronounce it. And so they came up with a metadata standard to aid in the harvesting and pushing and pulling of data across data catalogs. So that's the same standard that we use. We use a slight different flavor to the American one, but it's still in the same rough schema style. And if you want to have a look at that schema, we actually have that up on our GitHub account. So the address to that is github.com/data-govt-nz/schema, and that will actually walk you through all the various metadata that you would need to supply us from your end so that we can harvest your data. And now if you update your harvestable endpoint and we reharvest that, we'll get all of the new data sets that you're releasing. The interesting thing though, however, is that a lot of the data portals out there that are in use actually have this baked in by default. So for example, here's Auckland Transport's OpenGIS portal. And basically all of the Esri or ArcGIS open data portals, if you go to the URL for them and put data.json at the end of the URL, you actually get that exact machine readable harvestable endpoint that we use for data.govt.nz. So the good thing, Auckland Council there, is we can already harvest your data without you needing to do very much, which is great. So I can take a copy of that, and I can come over into our harvester. Now I rolled one of these earlier, set up a new harvest job. Let me get into the admin area of this. So this is something that we set up at the data.gov.nz end of things. So you would just let us know where your harvestable metadata is, and then we'd point at it, and lo and behold, we'll have your data in the catalogue so that all of New Zealand and all of the world can find your stuff, which is great. So how the harvesting works is we come in here, we put the URL through to that harvestable set of machine-readable data. Give it a title so that I know what that is. We've got various harvesters available as well, so we can harvest, if you're running a CCAN portal, we can harvest direct CCAN to CCAN portal. So CCAN is the open source software that we use for data.govt.nz. But there's various other ones that we can harvest. This one is called a geojson harvester, and DCAT is the underlying metadata standard that this is all based on. And that stands for data catalog JSON format. Then we can set the update frequency. So I'm just doing a manual, so this will be a one-off pull of that data, but we can, if you are regularly updating your data in your portal, there's no reason why we can't have these automatically trigger every week, every month, and if you're releasing new data and you want to make sure that that's discoverable on data.gov.nz, then that can just happen automagically. We'll just reharvest the new changes as they come through, which is really great. Then we can do a little bit of configuration magic here. So for example, we're going to harvest in these new data sets, and we're going to put them into our groups. So we've got a sort of a taxonomy of groups in data.gov.nz, and I'm going to harvest them directly into the transport and into the local and regional government groups, so that if people are looking at those groups for those particular themes, then they can find this data. And then lastly, I'm going to peg this onto Auckland Council, because they're the organisation that owns the data. And then we go and save that. And then I can run this harvester, and it will say, yes, we're going to harvest this, yada, yada, yada. I click confirm. And then we go and have a cup of tea. And depending on where we're located and how big the data sets are, or the set of data sets is, this can take anywhere from a couple of minutes to half an hour, depending on how much it's got to actually pull through. So if I just refresh that, we might even have a few coming through already. Oh, there we go. So it's harvested 4 already, and it will just sit there and whir away and just start harvesting all that stuff. And what we can do now, though, is I can go and have a quick look at what's being pulled in. So here we go. So I've got bus parking, car parking, I've got park and ride, parking lease, cool, and that's just going to keep building and adding more and more until it's finished harvesting all the stuff that's over here on the Auckland Open GIS data portal as well. So eventually what we end up with is the same data sets that you have here, well, the metadata for them, so that people can go and inspect them on data.gov.nz when they're looking around, and then they can find their way back to your portal if it's Auckland train stations perhaps that interests them for their research project or their application, or whatever it is that they're looking at. Cool, so here we go, 19. So we're doing a live harvest of Auckland transport's data at the moment, which is very cool. Just about there. Cool, 21. And I think I ran this the other day, and I think that was the number of data sets that was there. Cool, so we've just harvested through, in a couple of minutes, 21 data sets. Now if you start to add more into the OpenGIS portal at Auckland Council, we can reharvest that, and we'll just keep data.gov.nz up to date. So no more worrying about manually updating things as you go along. You just worry about your end, and we worry about our end because of the interoperability and the machine harvestability of the whole thing. It just keeps all the pipes piping the metadata to us at data.gov.nz, which is great. It's the kind of stuff we like. So if we pick, say, bus routes now, here's the bus route data set. And again, you've got all the different formats available, just like we saw earlier with Environment Canterbury's one. Got your geojson, got your CSVs, all that kind of stuff. There's usually a period after we harvest where it's setting up all of the different views. So I'll just go and have a look and see if we've got the view of the geojson over here. I'll just load that up. There's your geojson, there's your bus routes, and then as I said, you can go and check those out. If per se you wanted to just embed this map into your own site, we also do offer an embed service as well, so you can get an iframe embed of that map, displaying that data set that you can make use of in another website somewhere as well, which is quite neat. But I'll show you the what so that's Christchurch's what the Explorer looks like as well, because it's quite neat. Let's see if this works. There we go, cool. Okay, so this is a CSV file, so this could be any CSV file. And what you get basically is, on the page, you get an explorable set of the data behind it. Now this is not kept on data.gov as such, this is proxying or pulling this through from the original source. So this will be coming through, we'll make an initial ping through to eCan's file. We'll bring a copy locally just to display it, and we'll hold that for a period of time, and then we'll refresh it. It's certainly not pinging back every second, so that's going back to that earlier question, that sort of alleviates that worry a little bit of it being pinged lots and lots. It doesn't do that. We hold a cached copy for a period of time. And again, the point of this is not so that you use the data here. The point of this is during that exploratory period, when you're looking to find out what it is you need to find, you can get a peek in under the hood on the data to see if it's actually what you are after. And you can do things here like, so you can run sorts directly on here. You can filter, so I could say find me all the inbound bus routes. Go, cool, so there's all the inbound ones. So you can do a few little functions that you could do in something like Excel or another data application essentially. I'm not sure if this is a good example, but we do offer some basic graphing as well. So if you had a CSV file that had graphable data points in it, I don't know if this one will work too well, but you can pull up simple graphs again just to help with that exploratory period. So you might be hunting for a trend or something like that before you go and dig deeper into the data set. So this will help you explore that a little bit. Yeah, this is probably like a terrible example of that because it's not really meaningful data on that graph, but it's essentially we're just offering the tools. We don't control the data sets as such. They come from various agencies, and that's why longer term we need to get out there and speak with agencies and help them improve the quality of the stuff they're releasing, because that pipes its way through to data.gov, and if we fix it at the root source, it bubbles its way through and people get a better experience when they're discovering stuff on data.govt.nz. So it's beneficial to fix it at the source rather than us trying to sort of fluff it up a bit when it actually arrives at data.govt.nz essentially. So, which is a nicer approach, I think. It's a better, longer term, more sustainable approach for this kind of stuff. So cool, yeah. So we're not trying to replicate an entire GIS portal. We're not trying to replicate a massive statistical packaging application. We're simply, the point of data.gov is really the discovery. And once you've discovered it and decided that's the stuff you want, then how do you make use of that, essentially? That's the core purpose, really, of data.gov.nz above anything else, essentially. So, yeah. So you'll be able to actually now, when you head over to data.gov.nz into the beta portal, go and have a look at Auckland Transport's GIS data. It's up there now, and when we go live with the full portal, that will get harvested across as well. So basically the great thing about this video call is I've just done some work while I'm talking to you as well. So it's killing two birds with one stone, which is helpful. Oh, actually, one other feature before I wrap it up on this side of things. We can do search by location. So when you turn up to the portal, there's this lovely little map of Aotearoa here. And if I click the little pencil, I can say I'm interested in that area there. I'm interested in Auckland, and I can hit apply. And what that will do is it will go and filter the data sets available by that geographical region as well. So we can have a look here. So there's a whole bunch of the data sets from your data portal being brought up because I'm interested in that particular region. So when agencies provide their data sets, they can actually provide a geospatial fence around that data set, which is quite cool. And then that helps people find things. So you might find a cross-section of data sets from all over the place that relate to that geographical region rather than it's a bus route or it's belongs to Auckland Council. You might get a whole bunch of other interesting things from DOC, from MFE, from LINs, all sorts of interesting stuff essentially based on that region. Because you might want to sort of put a flag around your home and find out what interesting data sets relate to where you live, and start to cross-reference data sets, which again, there's a lot of power in bringing together data sets that aren't usually brought together, and this kind of helps facilitate that from a geographic standpoint as well. Cool. So timing-wise, let me just find my notes. So we'll be doing a soft production launch pre-Easter, so in the next week or so. Essentially, it'll be the same as what you're seeing at the moment on data.govt.nz, but we will then look at retiring the old portal. At the moment, we're running them in parallel. So that will be the only major difference there. The idea of what we're doing at the moment is get things out early so that people can make use of them and give us feedback. So it's really important. That nice short iteration style approach is really what we're keen for. And then we'll probably be looking at making a little bit more noise around this, probably in May, later in May, I would imagine. We're big on the soft launch because we're really keen for the community of users out there to really put this stuff through its paces. And we've got good connections in with the open data community, so we take a lot of feedback from them, roll that into future updates and things like that, and then we can have a big party in May, something like that. We might look at wrapping some training workshops and other interesting educational opportunities as well around that, because that's really what we're interested in, so to speak. We can market the heck out of this thing, but really it's about people learning new stuff, making use of the data for the things they do within their job, for new innovations, to power their digital services for their council, their department, whatever. We really need to start lifting people's capability to make use of and release this stuff well. That's really important. So that's what we're quite keen to start looking at. Great. How are we for time, Stu? I'm conscious we've sort of, I didn't quite get onto the open source
you've done really
stuff,
well, thank you.
But potentially we could do another session on that specifically if you've got someone that's particularly interested in that.
Yeah, so let's keep that conversation going, and we'll catch up very soon. That's really good, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And yeah, I'll keep everyone up to date as we progress as well. So definitely suggest, if you're a Twitter user at all, following the data_govt_nz Twitter handle, because as we roll new things out, we'll be sort of doing product updates and all sorts of things through that Twitter handle. I think we'll also be looking at a mailing list as well that you'll be able to get on to get updates and those sorts of things. We're working also quite closely with the Open Government Information and Data Program. So they used to be based at LINs. They are now based at Stats New Zealand, or Stats NZ. So all the people and players in this open data ecosystem and wider government, we're sort of all starting to come together and think system-wide and a bit more holistically on this stuff. So it's all very good. I'm just conscious I'm looking out the corner of my eye. There's people lined up to take over this meeting room. It's 10 o'clock on the dot. So yeah, cool.
Thank you ever so much indeed. Thank you, Cam.
Excellent. No worries. Anytime. Thanks very much.